everybody, if you like rosemary, boy have I got the recipe for you. This is Rory at Carolina Olive Oil. Hey, I'm going to turn this pan up and get it warmed up, and I'm going to add to it some of our rosemary herb extra virgin olive oil. This is a terrific recipe. It's really easy to make. You need a good cut of pork. We're using a pork ribeye this trip. And the idea here is to make just a small little morsel, small little delectable morsel you can cook up as an appetizer for your friends at your next party. They are going to love how this turns out, and if you like rosemary, boy, we're using a lot of it today. So we're starting out with rosemary olive oil, and we have seasoned our meat with our rosemary herb compound butter seasoning. All you do is soften up some butter, mix it in. One package will make an entire pound of butter. You can get that online along with our rosemary olive oil as well. So here we go. The pan is heated up, and by the way, you really don't need a fantastic pan for this. We're just doing this in a skillet today. And you can already hear that meat start to sizzle. I talk about this all the time. If the pan is too hot, the olive oil will start to smoke. If it doesn't sizzle, the heat is too low. Turn the temp up just a little bit. Meat has already been seasoned with the rosemary herb compound butter mix, so that's great. That's all we've put on it. There's no extra salt, no extra garlic or anything. I'm going to turn this pan down just a little bit. It's a little bit too hot right now. So we'll back that temperature off just a bit. And while this is cooking, let's talk about pans. Now this just happens to be an ordinary electric skillet. If you saw one of my other videos, you may have seen me using a copper Maviel pan. And those can be kind of difficult to use at times. What happens is they're just very hard to clean. Where this Teflon skillet is pretty easy. Just wipe it out and use some soap and water and you're good to go. The Maviel though, it takes some upkeep for that. It is great for being flat. It's great for spraying out the heat, but it's not very good when it comes time to maintenance, having to polish copper and all that. That's why a lot of people have them hanging up in the kitchen and they never use them. So this is cooking up right now, and we are going to talk about, let's see how this is doing. Not quite ready to turn yet. We're going to serve this on some rosemary bread. This bread comes to us from Hal the Baking Gal, and it's a sourdough. It's just going to be a little bite, and we're going to spread on that sourdough bread some rosemary compound butter that we make here. You can make that, you can buy that compound butter mix, take it home, mix this up yourself, add that to the bread, and then we're going to serve it on spring greens with a little sprig of rosemary just because we can. All right. So let's get this meat turned over now, and all right, so far so good. Now the trick with cooking this particular pork ribeye, because it's very, very tender, is not to overcook it. It will fool you if you try and press on it with a knife or a fork and test it for doneness that way. It will fool you almost every time. So don't do that. If you have to cut into it to see if it's done, do that. It's a little hard to get a temperature probe in a small piece of meat like this. Don't worry about it. Just cook it until you think it's done. Take a little test cut and see if it's ready to go. That's really all there is to it. You can't mess this one up too much. It can be done in a skillet. It can be done on the grill. Pork ribeye is an amazing cut of meat. And it is absolutely some of the most tender pork you will ever have. I've got customers that come into our store to buy pork ribeye all the time from us, and they just never want to buy a different piece of pork again. So we're going to let that cook up, and in just a minute we're going to serve this by slicing it thinly across the grain and plating it right away and serving it to our guests while it's hot. Okay? Here we go. This is a fairly thick piece of meat, so we are going to give it a chance to cook all the way through without being too done. All right. Yeah, that's browning nicely on the top. We'll get the other side. You can see it sizzling. Just the slightest bit of steam and smoke coming there. We're going to turn that down just a little bit. That is the disadvantage with using an electric skillet like this. The electric skillet tends to fluctuate a great deal in heat. You may have to play with the heat just a little bit. If you're lucky enough to have a gas stove and you can turn that temperature down really low, that's ideal. You get a constant heat that way at a lower temperature. So we're letting that do its thing right now. And all right. Beautiful. Okay. Okay, so that's really all there is to this. I'm going to move this out of the way. And I'm going to cut into this. And let's see what we have here. It's our little test cut. Yeah, this is a little rarer than I would like, a little rarer than your guests are going to want. So we're going to let that cook up just a minute or two. Meanwhile, this is the presentation that we're going to be serving to guests. And you can see here that we have the sprig of rosemary just kind of stuck through a hole in the sourdough bread. It is spread with our compound butter, and of course then served with our spring greens, all with this rosemary sourdough loaf. So lots of rosemary being introduced to this recipe. So that's all great. All right. So back we go on this. Thin little slices. Oh, that is beautiful. Okay. So that piece right there, we'll save that for later. Now remember that these are small, delicate little portions for your guests. And we're going to put that right on that butter and let that heated pork kind of melt that butter a little bit, make it all nice and gooey and melty and delicious. All right. Here we go. This is it. Okay. It's just a taste that's gonna just fill that mouth of yours with goodness. You're gonna love this recipe. Rosemary olive oil, rosemary compound butter made with our rosemary herb compound butter mix, a little sprig of rosemary just because we can, and some spring grains. That's all there is to it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you love this recipe. Give us a thumbs up, tell us you liked it, and subscribe.